Hey everyone, this is Nate Williams, the director of the Apologetics Resource Center, and here is the latest podcast episode, YouTube and Rumble video of ARC News. A lot going on, a lot I could cover. I thought to highlight three stories. So here we go. I hope everyone's doing well. Y'all, if you could like, share, subscribe, all of those things, I would greatly appreciate it. And it helps to get the word out about the channel or the podcast. Whatever you are listening or viewing this on, if you could share it, that would be wonderful. First up, our first story comes from the new Pope, Pope Leo. And this is what Pope Leo says. And so he obviously is new, and sometimes we don't always know what a pope thinks on certain topics or issues until naturally he speaks out on it. So here we go. Pope Leo says those against abortion, but in favor of death penalty, are not really pro life. For the first time since being elected in May, Pope Leo waded into US politics, criticizing those who say they're against abortion but support the death penalty, saying that's not really pro life. And here's my struggle with that. It's not regarding the death penalty. Christians will fall on both sides of that issue. There's those who say, oh, the Bible's for it, it's okay. There are those who say, nope, it's inhumane, doesn't let people respond to the gospel. What if someone might convert later, but you go ahead and you get rid of them, so to speak, before they can make that decision? Then there are those people, there's kind of a nuanced middle ground where they say, yes, biblically, the death penalty is allowed. However, when it comes to just the corruption of government, it's not a power the government should ever utilize because they're corrupt. And so, yes, technically it's okay, but in practice, there's too much evil in a government for the government to put it into practice. So, different views there. I might ask Pope Leo because, oh, if you're against abortion, but you support the death penalty, that you're not really pro life. If God instituted the death penalty in Genesis chapter 9, I'll read it for you here. Genesis 9, verses 5 and 6. This is what it says in Genesis. And for your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal. And from each human being, too, I will demand an accounting for the life of another human being. Whoever sheds human blood, here we go. Whoever sheds human blood, by human shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made mankind. So the death penalty biblically comes from God. So does that make God not pro-life? I'm sure there's some sort of answer for that, but I'd be curious what he would say. But this video, this section of the video is not even on the death penalty. It's on a maneuver against the pro-life movement that we need to be watchful and wary of. And it's very, very common. So the pro-life position is this: human life begins at conception. And once human life begins, it needs to be protected legally, morally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, in all the ways you protect human life. And so, abortion is the intentional ending of human life, how it's popularly defined. It's someone electing to end their pregnancy. And so abortion is immoral. It is wrong. It should be illegal. So that's the basics of the pro-life position. But one maneuver that's often used, one tactic that's used against the pro-life is exactly what is exemplified by Pope Leo. Oh, if you're pro-life, you need to be anti-death penalty. If you're pro-life, what are you doing to help the homeless and the poor and the sick and the orphans and the widows, so on and so forth? What are you doing in terms of justice and climate and systems and institutions? And what it does is it says if you're really pro-life, you are going to be for A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And and so you might be like, oh, hey, Nate knows the alphabet. My point is this: you take the definition of pro-life, now all of a sudden you need to be for all of my policies. You need to be for all of my politics and my positions and my all the rest of it. And What frustrates me when people try to do this, such as what Pope Leo is doing here, if you're against abortion, but you support the death penalty, you're not really pro-life. What frustrates me when people do this is that doesn't happen to other moral causes. That doesn't happen to other types of serving. So I'll give an example. If I go to you and I say, hey, I want to save the environment. I want to save the whales. I want to save endangered species, whatever it is. And you go, you're not really for the environment because why aren't you fighting for the rainforests? Why aren't you fighting for the polar bears and the solar and the ice caps? And why aren't you fighting for the penguins and these birds and those animals and this cause and this atmospheric condition and all the rest of it? And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I I do support those things and I want to help the environment in such and such ways, but my cause is more narrow and limited because I have finite resources. And so I can't be for everything practically because I'm just very limited in what I can do. But we don't do that with other causes. We allow them to be narrow and focused, and that's okay, but not with the pro life movement. If you're really pro life, if you're really for protecting the unborn, you need to be for children and teens and mothers and fathers and orphans and those in foster care and the elderly and so on. And it's what I call it's definitional creep. And it weakens and it softens the pro life movement. And eventually it's destroyed because you can't do everything. As much as I'd like to be for everything and to volunteer and to give money and to help a bunch of different causes, I am very limited. I have limited money, I have limited energy, I have limited time, and all the rest of it. So if I'm pro life and I can really only focus on the unborn, that's what I can do. We don't do this definitional creep to other social causes, other charities, other ministries, but people try to hit pro-lifers with that all the time, including Pope Leo, where you start to attach all these different demographics and policy positions, and you say, if you're really pro-life, you're going to be for all these other policies. Maybe, maybe not, but you know what I can focus on? I can focus on the unborn. So if you're pro life and you're listening, don't accept the grounds of the argument or the debate. Where if you're pro life, you also have to throw in a bunch of other things to spend your time, money, resources on a bunch of other things. You might not have it. What you do have is a calling to protect the unborn. And if that's you, wonderful. Don't let people make you feel guilty about that. Don't let definitional creep expand the pro life movement until functionally it's just impossible to actually do any good from a pro-life perspective. People don't do that for other causes, such as saving the environment. We don't definitionally creep on those causes. Don't let people do that with ours either. So that's something about Pope Leo that was frustrating, regardless of your thoughts on the death penalty. To find him using those styles of that reasoning and that argument, it was disappointing. Now, moving to everyone's favorite person, I'll look at another article. FDA approves another abortion pill after RFK Jr. pledged to review safety of said abortion pill, which outrages conservatives. The Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, recently approved a new generic version of abortion pill. I apologize if I mispronounced this, mifepristone, a move conservatives are blasting as a complete betrayal after Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. pledged a thorough safety review of the drug. So, this is what I'll say. For those who are, again, like me, firmly in the pro life camp, this is disastrous. To make the abortion pill easier to obtain, because a lot of abortions these days are chemical. We often focus on the physical abortions, and yes, we should, but they're also chemical, and these drugs get sent through the mail to just wherever whoever orders them. And so this was deeply disappointing. But we have to remember RFK, he's not pro-life. And so I do have to agree with former Vice President Mike Pence, who blasts Kennedy. Uh, he's not a pro-life pick, and we knew that. So, as always, with President Trump, if you are fair and impartial, when Trump does something good, you can say it's good. When he made a mistake, you need to call him out on it because again, it was the same thing with President Biden. My firm position is this: whoever's in the office, whether or not you voted for this person, when he does something good, say it, compliment him, that it's okay to do so. When he does something bad, criticize him, hold him accountable. I think that from a pro-life perspective, Trump made a mistake by choosing RFK Jr. Now, there could be other things that are good about him. So, for example, it is very refreshing to have someone as a health secretary who actually looks healthy, who looks to be in shape. You might not agree with his positions on vaccines or various things. You might love him for trying to remove chemicals out of our food and red dye this and this other thing and that other thing that you can't pronounce. We might like that he's removing harmful chemicals from our food. So whether you love him, whether you hate him, from a pro-life perspective, I do believe President Trump made a mistake by choosing RFK Jr., and it's okay to say so. So he has after saying there was going to be a review, he then goes ahead and approves a generic abortion pill drug for distribution. So, again, from a pro life perspective, that is very, very disappointing. And it's okay to call Trump out on that, as Vice President Pence has done so. We have to be impartial, whether or not we like the person in office. With the good, you compliment. With the bad, you criticize. And pro life perspective, this was very bad. One thing we need to do a better job of doing, going to our third and final story for the day, I see different numbers, but one number I've seen commonly is around 50,000 Christians have been murdered in Nigeria since 2009. It's awful. It is one of the worst persecutions, genocides, whatever you want to call it, mass murders of a people group in recent memory. And this year alone, from this one article I'm reading, more than 7,000 Christians have already been murdered, thousands more kidnapped. Advocacy groups say more than 19,000 churches have been destroyed and millions of believers displaced from their homes. Y'all, Christians are getting slaughtered in Nigeria in the many, many thousands, dozens of thousands. I don't know what I can do. I am an apologist in Alabama, a local apologist, and I preach and teach at local churches. I'd love to come and preach and teach at your church if you'd have me, but I don't know what I can do. But we have to share this and we have to talk about it in our circles because this is absolutely awful. The article I'm looking at is Relevant Magazine, and I've seen enough to where I think in general these descriptions are accurate. The attacks are concentrated in Nigeria's middle belt and northern states, where armed groups storm villages, kill men, abduct women and children, as if you can imagine, other things will happen there as well, torch crops and burn churches. Islamist extremists such as Boko Haram and ISIS affiliates are responsible for many raids. Militant Fulani herdsmen have also been linked to assaults on predominantly Christian farming communities, forcing families from their lands. Y'all, millions of Christians are displaced inside Nigeria. Representative Chris Smith of New Jersey has said at least 5 million Nigerians, mostly Christians, have been forced into camps or across borders. Some estimates put the number as high as 12 million. So, first off, as believers, what we need to do is pray first. Sometimes a common attack from those on just different sides of the aisle is, oh, all you do is pray. I'm not saying to stop there. What I am saying is to start there. You always start before you act with prayer so that God preps and primes your heart. God readies your soul. He prepares you for next steps because without that, if you just fly into something, we're going to do so selfishly. We're going to do so out of anger. We're going to do so out of maybe some self motivation and purposes that we devise for our own ends. And so we prime our actions with prayer so that when we act, we do so in a way that is intended to glorify God and not ourselves. So we start with prayer, and then after that, I'm open to suggestions. Is it fundraising? Is it helping out various organizations who are on the ground, boots on the ground, helping those Christians? Is it encouraging some level of government action, government involvement? I don't know because I'm not an expert on these things, but it does also involve spreading awareness so that other people know what's going on. This is a horrific persecution and lots of people being killed. So lots of Christians being killed, massive numbers, really, and we need to know about it. All right, y'all, this has been ARC News. Nate Williams. Again, if you are enjoying these videos, please consider subscribing, following, liking, sharing, depending on the platform you're using right now to consume the content. Also, would you consider supporting ARC as well? There's going to be a link in the descriptions for you to do so if that interests you. That allows me to continue to produce content, to share videos and podcast episodes, to travel, preach, and teach, to tell people about Jesus Christ. But until next time, y'all, be blessed, be active, be aware, but make sure you're in the Word, make sure you're praying. Until next time, I'll talk with you later.